I am Michael Potter. I am running for House District 47, which is about the lower half or the southern half of Johnson County and the western half of Shelby County. And yeah, I'm running as a Democrat.
Awesome. And what made you decide to run?
Oh, many things, but my job is as an environmental scientist, and probably the straw that really broke for me was the when the legislature was trying to change the definition of PFAS. And it's something that we deal a lot with in the environmental world, trying to clean up PFAS spills and whatnot. And just listening to them talk, it was the PFAS and the as long as Lake Michigan has water in it, then Indiana doesn't have a water problem. And it's like, okay, they are so wrong in just ill-informed on the environment. I have to try. And then combine that with my wife, Blythe Potter, running for Secretary of State. Combine that with her getting started in Bargersville. Her first campaign was Bargersville Town Council, and we just found ourselves talking about politics all the time. Then I got brought into the Johnson County Democrats group, the county party. And at one of the county party dinners, the first county party dinner I went to, Jennifer McCormick spoke at. Jennifer is very inspirational, and then quickly ran into Destiny Wells through Blythe's military background. And yeah, you can see why I might have got involved in politics, hanging out with those three.
Of course, I'm sure they kind of encouraged you strongly as well.
Nobody was twisting. I mean, Blythe was, one way or the other. It was kind of like, well, can we really do this with two of us running? And it was like, well, I mean, it's like all we do, in the 15 minutes it seems we get at the end of the day. That's all we were talking about. Certainly in Bargersville, we had just moved here, and there were lots of infrastructure issues, so we just spent a lot of time, and we walked. It was COVID. Blythe was pregnant, so we were walking around town all the time, and it was like, man, our town council, they evidently do not walk anywhere ever in town, so they were not seeing some of the issues, whether it's like pieces of parks, falling apart, or backed up sewers or whatnot. So, yeah,
Is that a big problem down there? I know in
it's not
India.
it's not a big problem, but it's like there's simple problems to fix, like or crosswalks. Hatching, just delineating crosswalks so cars can see what's going on. Having ramps for wheelchair and stroller access, which are, maybe not, whatever, wheelchairs, how many people are there? Well, you know what there are a lot of in the White River Township, Center Grove community? Strollers.
Yeah,
Lots and lots of strollers.
absolutely. That's crazy. But tell me more about your day job. You said you're an environmental scientist. Are you also a geologist?
Yeah, I'm a licensed professional geologist. I went to school at IU in Indianapolis. I got my degree in geology. Went on to some graduate school. I did not finish my master's, but I spent 3 years there TAing, doing research in the mountains of Southern California, out in the desert. Got a graduate certificate in geographic information science, which is a fancy term for map making. Or GIS, GIS, GPS, something that's pretty common now. But when I was graduating, or when I was finishing up and in interviewing, I had a company say, GIS, what's that? I also got reprimanded at my first job for being insistent that we move our data collection into a GIS, rather than doing a separate CAD base map and then a spreadsheet in Excel or whatever. It's like, they have a system now. We can merge this. We really should do that. That's where the business is going. 25 years ago, and it was like, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep harping on it. Like, well, it kind of makes sense. Yeah. So with my geology degree, there's there's actually endless jobs you can do, but the big one is oil companies. Certainly, working at or going to school in Southern California, we had a lot of oil companies come through. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to work in the oil industry. I definitely didn't want to move to Texas or Louisiana. Nothing against them. I just didn't want to live down in that heat and humidity. I probably wasn't going to be lucky enough to move, live in San Francisco or the Bay Area or even Southern California at a reasonable price. When I left undergrad, I actually said, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to be a consultant. I do know that. We had a consultant come and do like a career day thing, and he didn't make it sound fun. And wow, he really did injustice to the consulting industry, because I love it. I've been doing it for 25 years, and really being that interface either between a company and regulators or a company and the community. I really like bridging that gap. And that really it's helped in the politics side, because I've worked with the EPA. I've been in front of legislators before when their community is under fire of a train wreck with chemical spills or a pipeline release, things like that. It was, that's what I do. So geology degree, but then turned it into studying the environment and mostly cleaning up chemical spills or chemical leaks from industrial companies.
Yeah, I'm sure that keeps you very busy.
It could be. Yeah. I try to not work too much.
Yeah, but tell me a little bit. We got a question in the chat. They want to know if you have a specific goal for Indiana that you would like to achieve. Maybe if you get elected, is there a number one environmental goal you would like to see change?
It's a hard question.
Maybe it's too broad.
It's broad. It's narrow. Number one thing I want to do is bring the environmental question to every piece of policy, every company that comes to talk. Take data centers. How are you getting your energy? How are you getting your water? What are you doing with your waste? Every time, like any proposal that comes to the state for a tax break, for just we want to be involved in the state, whatever it is. I don't know all the inner workings. I'm not behind the scenes of the IEDC making these deals that we've all learned about for billions of dollars. But I have seen, obviously, we're hearing about the water issues with whether it's LEAP, the LEAP project, and just the overall development of that, which is some chip manufacturing, maybe some data centers. Lilly is doing some manufacturing there. All those things need some amount of water. They definitely need energy. And what I would like to do is, when we look at our energy budget, is we're already getting a lot of pollution out of the coal-fired power plants and even the gasification of those plants. There's still a kind of a base level of pollution. And a lot of people don't see it because it's like, it's down along the rivers and then it's pushed out into the grid and whatnot. So I try not to take the concept, well, it's not in my backyard, so it's okay. Right? There's definitely a pollution problem in general in industrial countries. And so I would like to say, like, hey, we're done. Like, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot increase this base load anymore. So you want a new power plant? Fine. You got to figure out how to do it without adding to the pollution. You want to add a data center with cooling water? Fine. You just got to figure out how to not raise the amount of water we're taking out of the aquifer. And I've seen that all the way down to the local level here in Johnson County. It's probably like 3 miles south of me in Union Township. A developer wanted to build a new, develop an old farm, and it was, it's one of those parcels where, hey, it's been regulated to 10 acres per lot kind of thing. And they wanted to break that up and get 8 houses on this. I think the overall is that is maybe 20 or 30 acres. They want to get 8 homes on there, all on wells. And I saw that coming. I was like, I keep seeing people post around here, kind of down that way, because I'm in Old Town Bargersville. We're on city water, and they have pretty good water. There are some issues, but they have pretty good water here in Bargersville. Thank goodness. I kept seeing people post on our Nextdoor apps on Facebook. Hey, my well's dry. My well's dry. Where do you guys get potable water from? How do you go about getting potable water? My well's dry. And so, being the geologist, I was like, this is really odd. So I go into the well database. I look at these people's wells. Like, why are they dry? Well, it turns out that most of the people around here on wells are tapping into a very thin seam of water down in the soil, in the soil aquifer. I'm having lost for words because I don't even call that an aquifer. I mean, it's just like a crack in the soil down there. And so really they need to be drilling deeper wells down to the bedrock, overburden or glacial till interface, which tends to be a little sandier. You get fractured rock because that was the old surface at one time, had a glacier on it, or all that kind of old geology stuff. So you might get a little bit better water, but they may even have to go deeper to get into the bedrock fractures and get water out of there. Which I think that most people are at like 60 to 80 feet. They probably need to go down to 120 and then get into the bedrock. You may have to go like 200 or something. But every 30 feet, it's like an extra $10,000 or something. So it's like these people are looking, if they want to replace their well, they may be looking at like $30,000 to $50,000 to get a new well. It's like, that's insane. So they're planning on building these 8 houses and getting water to them when already people are short on water. Long story. You got to cut me off because I'll get into a story about everything.
That's okay.
And it turns out I've always been a pretty shy person, and I just mostly don't care to talk and don't think people want to hear from me. But now that I'm an old man of 51, you get these stories. Like you just have so many experiences in life. And I've spent a good chunk of life, not my whole life, but a good chunk here in Johnson County, in White River Township, Center Grove area. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stories out there.
No, but that's crazy. Why is that normal to not have that much water until you get deeper, or?
Well, you have one. No, yeah, it is normal. It just depends where you live. If you, and I told one of my friends that's in that situation, I was like, I think if you were able to get just off your property down into, there's a creek down there. So that creek is a valley. That valley was probably carved by the glacial runoff. And then it's filled in as the glaciers retreated, it fills it in. So it's usually a little more sandy in there. And so there's almost like probably a trough. I mean, I haven't drilled anything in there, but it's kind of textbook sort of stuff. So if you could get over there, there's probably more water in there. And people are always doing shallow wells. I mean, sometimes somebody might have if they're in a sandy area or a bedrock area. Matter of fact, I looked at this up in Wisconsin last week. It was just 7 feet to bedrock. And so they had a well just 7 feet deep. We usually call that a cistern. And so it's really just taking that surface water and giving it a place to collect. It trickles down into the bedrock. It'll collect there, collect off the surface. People want as shallow as possible because every foot the price increases with every foot, not because the driller's trying to screw you, but it's just that much more difficult to get every foot or every 10 feet, whatever. And it can be an exponential increase because it can be exponentially more difficult to get deeper. So yeah, you want a well as shallow as you can. Cost wise, you really want it as deep as you can to get away from most pollution or surface issues that would be out there.
Yeah. Well, talking about water pollution is making me think about air pollution because our air quality is horrible. Are there things that Indiana could do from the state house to help with that?
Yeah, I haven't dug into say I don't know where you lived. You don't have
I'm
to
in
say on
Indianapolis.
in Indianapolis. Okay, so Indianapolis, different situation than say Johnson County or the rural areas, and I think of rural areas take a pretty big hit from the farming. Is just like literal dust in the air. So that's when you see the particulate, or now we associate air quality with the wildfires and the AQI number, air quality index. And I went down a see more stories. Always a story. Went down a deep rabbit hole with the AQI during the major wildfires. We were working in East Palestine, Ohio, where the big train wreck was, and it was issued for our workers. And so I also have done a lot of air quality work, and I wanted to figure out what is this number? What does it mean? So a lot of it is particulate based in that 2.5 particle size, or the 10 particle size. But then in Indianapolis, you're getting now the density of traffic. So you're getting a lot of that car exhaust or NOx in there. And it's kind of the same thing. You want, is it electric cars? Is that the way to go? Are we pushing our emissions just, again, not in my backyard? So let them manufacture and do all the emissions out there, out wherever, not here. But I think electric cars can make a little dent. Bicycle and pedestrian. And this is like a bad word in Indiana, but public transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I sat in a room with what's that Southeast Franklin Township, Indianapolis legislator. Just totally lost his name, but like he was angry about is the blue line that's going in now, the east-west blue line. Yeah. It's just so angry about public transportation. It's like, could we all be as privileged as you to have our own cars and drive everywhere? And I say that I've been very privileged from 16. My dad, my parents were divorced. My dad lived out of town, but he had a good job, was able to get us a car. And, I've had my own personal car ever since. But I live next to a rail line, gets used 2 times a day. It goes from Indianapolis past Bloomington, down to the coal mines, like Vincennes area, and then over to into Illinois. But could you imagine just having a line from Bloomington to Indianapolis?
Yeah, that'd be great. Or even just like an actual speed train to, I don't know, Chicago. That'd be cool.
And that line exists. It's in place. It shares and they have ways to share. I mean, all the freight trains. I've done a lot of work for railroads. I'd say over the 25 years, I'd say maybe 50% of the work I've done has been for the railroads. Maybe it's higher than that. And so I follow the lines. I see the trains, and now I live next to a rail line. It's called a short line, so it's not one of the big railroads, just a local train. But again, 2 times it goes, once down and once back each day. And the rest of the time, it just sits there empty. Like, why are we not using this? And there's politics behind that. Obviously, the public transportation politics, but even within the railroad, there's politics because Amtrak, I guess, controls all the passenger rail. And so they would have to come on board with the short line, blah, blah, blah. So ask how many, that's Blythe. Ask how many head-on train collisions he's had.
Have you had a lot?
I have. I don't drive the trains. I have been to head on. There's more than there should be head on. Most of the time it's merging and they just like push each other over, or it's a train and a truck or a passenger car crossing, or that I've worked on. Yeah. Or like East Palestine, Ohio, was the wheel bearings, just the wheel sets went bad on one of the cars, and once one goes, the whole train goes pretty much. Um, but I did see one head on. I didn't see it happen. We responded to it, and it ended up with 3 locomotives stacked on top of each other. That was pretty wild.
That
to see.
is crazy. Okay. Well, I want to ask some questions more about your campaign here. Tell me about what you would like to see for Indiana in your ideal situation in terms of healthcare.
Oh boy. I'd like to see healthcare. You know, very simple. I think we could do more with healthcare. Our aging population, my parents are in that group, the baby boomers, are only growing, like it just exponentially growing. And there's this like, oh, it's getting so expensive. Well, no kidding. Like the population is growing, as we see with, our national leaders in that, like say the autism argument, like, oh, there's so much more autism. There's must be a problem in the water or in this or that. It's like, no, we know how to recognize these things now. And it's not bad. Like in many ways, and I've worked with a lot of folks that would be considered on the spectrum. They're geniuses. They are so great to work with. They see things in a different way. They can analyze data in a different way, and they're just great. But we recognize that, and I think even in our everyday life, like I'm working with someone, like they're probably on the spectrum, right? Like I'm talking to them and they're ignoring me because they're so focused, and then they come and have this genius idea. So you recognize heart conditions, constriction, prostate cancer. Like we're just seeing like that's prostate cancer isn't an old man's disease. It only got found in old men because that's when they was like really taking over their bodies. We go all the way back to 30-year-olds have issues, 25-year-olds have issues, and we're just able to recognize that better through better science. And we could go off on the whole anti-science direction of our current administration. So all that to be said, I think we can do a better job funding healthcare. Can we do 100%? I would love to. But I don't, it'll take time to get there. I should preface all answers for this podcast and really leading up to the campaign, a whole year from now or a year and a month. I'm only one person. So unless you folks out there elect a whole bunch of Democrats in Indiana, we're not going to be able to make a big splash. And so what my goal is to get to a better balance. I think a better balanced legislature will help Indiana. Hopefully it doesn't deadlock it like we're in on our federal government right now, right? Because if they're in a supermajority, one, we would be in real trouble if it was a Republican supermajority. But the government wouldn't be closed, more than likely. But we would be in trouble. So I think a balanced legislature, and so everything we talk about, that's really my goal, is to be one piece of the puzzle towards a balanced legislature in Indiana, and then hopefully bring this always thinking about the environment when any proposal. Yep, that's a lot of money. That's great. $1 billion investment in Indiana. What about our water? What about our air? What about their waste?
Is there anybody on who is currently serving who has the experience with the environment that you do that you're aware of?
Yeah, there are great champions. Carrie Hamilton is the first one that comes to mind. And I'm sorry if others, I know you're probably not watching me on the podcast, but there are great champions. Pretty much all the Democrats are great champions, but Carrie does, and I don't know what she does exactly on her off time, but it is in the environmental field, writing grants and proposals and things like that. So she's probably the number one on the environment. And I've tried to talk to her, and she's like, whoa, that's way too technical for me. Like I'm big picture environment. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting, it was like on the PFAS, like getting into the like the fluorinated chains and stuff on it. It's just like, oh, no, I don't know anything about that. And I only know that because I work with really smart chemists as well. So, but yeah, I was very concerned about the PFAS thing last year.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that.
Yeah. Well, it got real detailed, and it's the chemical manufacturing people that use, some portion of a PFAS chemical, and they want to, they're trying to narrow it down. Like, hey, you can do all the other ones except for the ones we use. Don't regulate them, because then that'll be a problem. And there's still a lot of unknowns on that. The EPA, and well, they probably kind of slowed on their research, but there are some unknowns. But sort of like COVID, and I've been in this argument many times, is when we don't know, let's err on the side of safety and work back from there instead of doing it the other way when we've, throughout history, we've lost many lives because we just we didn't really think about that. So,
yeah, for sure. One question that came in is, are you in favor of raising the minimum wage in Indiana to an actual living wage?
Yes. Yep. And to expand on that just a little bit is I'd like to figure out a way to kind of regulate wages in general in a way where I'm all for, entrepreneurs and owners and CEOs making money. But those lines with their workers, they need to be much closer. Right now it's, something like that, right? A CEO pay up here just skyrocketing and workers staying flat. I'd like to see those lines, be able to somehow regulate that those lines have to stay. So if you're going to give yourself a pay raise, your workers need to be coming up in the same way. If you're getting a bonus, the workers need to be getting a bonus. And well, they don't need $1 million bonus. Well, you're going to be spreading that out across lots of employees. So it's not going to be $1 million per employee, but if you're taking $1 million, give them $1 million, even if that's $100 per employee, if that's all it is probably going to be significant. It'd be significant to me. If anything, it's a nicer dinner out without alcohol.
Right.
You get any alcohol in there, that bill's going way up.
Right. Of course. Another question that someone wanted to know is, are you going to fight against the trans kind of crusade that the Republicans have been on?
Yeah, absolutely. I should have brought I have a sticker here. I really can't take it off my computer. I'm all for the LGBTQIA community. I'm 100% behind them. One thing, and I think, when I have conversations with folks that are part of that group, and you're having the one-on-one, they understand that they're a small percentage of the, global population. They're not any less significant as a person, but we do need to watch letting the Republicans frame that argument as that's all we care about. And it's same with transgender athletes. I have two girls that are 19 and 22. They played volleyball through high school. There was no issues. There were no regulations on if a girl or a transgender youth could play in their volleyball league or not. It never came up. And we were in convention centers with tens of thousands of kids. Never an issue, because it's a small fraction of people, and it almost has to be a case by case situation for the community, and let that community maybe deal with it. I definitely don't think our national legislation needs to be spending a whole lot of time on it, and I think that's where it's let's. The Republicans used to have the thing about small government, and this is a case where we need small government. Let the school, let the maybe if the NCAA needs to get involved in that, but let them handle it. That's not a federal issue. It's certainly not a Democrat defining issue, except the fact that we accept all people and we're not bigots for the most part. I think that covers that. I have a T-shirt out. If anyone get on my website, friendsofmichaelpotter.com. Head over to Act Blue from there, and I have a shirt. It's I've made with encouragement from my friends at Greenwood Pride, and I took my duck, and I do have my duck sign here. So this is my district, and when you make it yellow, it looks like a duck. I hope everyone can see that. So for Pride, I made the duck the Pride flag, so rainbow colors, and then it says "Looks gay, I'm in." So it's just a kind of a fun way for me to say, hey, I support you.
Great. I love that. So tell me about your thoughts on the school voucher program.
Man, there's so many issues, so many troubling issues. Number one, and I was just saying this out loud to somebody, I really think Marion County needs to have its own, take Marion County out of any Indiana public education discussion. That is its own separate legislation. I don't understand why we're legislating a school system involving 800,000 people with the same way as that we're legislating a school system with 800 people, 800,000 and 800, very different issues to deal with. So I feel like we need to almost take Marion County and maybe, some of our bigger city school corporations could be separate from this. Because there's separate issues that they deal with lotteries to get in schools and things like that. Otherwise, I do not support money going to private schools for those that don't need it. Tax dollars should be going to public schools. I guess that's the simplest way to say it. And certainly not religious schools. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I don't go there now. I'm not particularly religious in the sense of going to church, but I don't think religious schools that have a different agenda should be getting money from our state government.
Yeah. Do you think that the voucher program should then exclude the ability to take that to a religious school? Or are you just looking at putting a cap on the income level again? Or do you have thoughts?
I don't think it should go to religious private schools at all. Okay. And there'll certainly be a cap. But I am okay with, in certain situations, and I had to deal with this with my older kids, and they ultimately ended up going to the school that in their community, but they were, through their school years, they transferred from Westfield to Zionsville, and there was a talk that my ex-wife would want to keep them in Westfield, and so, let's do the process of requesting that they can stay or whatever. And that's, I think, how it used to be, and particularly longer time ago, where if you wanted to switch between public school districts, you kind of just had to ask, not just assume you were getting in. There's so much to the school funding formulas, and you're always behind on that, right? And using projected numbers. And so really any school system is going into the school year underfunded, essentially. They're funding on the year's prior's attendance, and maybe a little projection in there, but they don't know, especially in these donut county school districts that are just growing so fast. And so to have people transferring kind of last minute, that really messes up the funding. Transfer and then it doesn't work out, they go back. It should be something to stay in your community. And my argument with my ex-wife was I want the kids to go to school in their community. I think that's important. I think it's important that they live close to their friends. And we didn't really have a good excuse for them to stay where they were, except that it's hard to change. And I acknowledge that it's hard to change. And I acknowledge that to my young kids. One was in 5th grade, which is middle school, in Zionsville. They have 5, 6, 7, 8. and so I felt like that was a good time. Like, let's make the jump now, even though it's going to hurt for a little while. But I think in the long run, it'll work out, and I think it did. So that's how I feel about schools. I
Yeah,
like public schools here in Indiana.
I do too. I wish that we funded our public schools better, because a lot of kids who don't have the parents filling out that information. It's like some kids don't have that support there where their parents is going to fill out the voucher program application.
Yeah.
So it's like they're just stuck in these schools. And that's not fair either. It's like everybody should have a chance for a good education.
And I have seen, even back 30 years ago when I was in school, where people have a hard time in their school for one reason or another, and they should be able. So I'm not saying you're stuck. You should be able to go and go to the next town over, or divorced parents jump up to your other parents' school or whatever. And have some choice there in public schools, but I do think public dollars should go to public schools that are regulated by the public government and all that kind of stuff.
I agree.
Another issue with school funding, though, is a lot of these environmental programs. The Biden administration was giving out a lot of money to put in like solar and geothermal heating and cooling systems for schools. Which then, that really helps their bottom line once it's in. So, for you and me to go out and put solar on our house, that's pretty expensive. It really helped. And we have solar on our house. We kind of made out pretty well in selling a house, buying a new house. Of course, we could have put money elsewhere in some of our loans and things, but we really wanted to be on solar, so we bit the bullet and we had the cash and we put it on the house. So then you start looking at return on investment there, and that'll take a long time. That'll be the life cycle of the panels, very likely. But for a school system, when they're getting federal dollars, so they're not paying for that installation and those materials, so they're just seeing the discount where their power is being paid for. Especially they're in school, they need the heating, the cooling, the lights during the daylight hours. So they really are benefiting from having alternative energy in the school, which then frees up money to do other things, even if it can't go right into the teacher's pocket, which is right now where I'd like to see money go, because that's just such a thankless job being a teacher. And they get so abused in so many communities by the parents when they're only trying to do their best. Even if it goes to paying another person to help cut the grass, or to maybe shore up the building in some way on infrastructure that's crumbling or something. Any extra dollar that a school system has is beneficial. I was lucky enough to be part of the Center Grove Ambassadors, which they invite community people in for a class once a month. You go for an hour and you learn about the school system, and you do that for I think we did that 8 or 10 months, something like that. And you learn all about the pieces and what it takes to actually run a school system, and it is crazy. Can't remember. I think the budget for just the cafeteria food was like $3 or $5 million for the school, for all the school, not just the high school, but all the schools. But that's somebody's job, is to run that $3 million a year, and that's a lot of money to manage, and people hiring and firing of cafeteria staff. What's your food vendor? Are they getting the food? Blah blah blah. Like, it takes a lot to run a school.
Absolutely, and a lot of the positions in schools are very underpaid.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone is living on a teacher's salary, to be completely honest. But talking about the cost of things, let's talk about the housing crisis. What are your thoughts? Do you have any visions of how we can move forward with the housing crisis, I guess?
I don't have a good solution for that, because I don't know that just building is the way to, just keep building and building and building. Probably, one solution is getting money back into the schools, because a lot of times it's the struggling school systems that cause a housing crisis because maybe people don't want to live in that district, so they're moving to other districts, which then are strained, and but they don't want to live in that district because the schooling isn't great, or and a lot of times with the schooling then becomes, there's a lot of crime in that area. Well, because the school's not great, a lot of these things kind of compound on each other. So, I think, again, having a strong public school system across the state really helps that. Again, doesn't solve it. This is probably a multifaceted issue. Housing density matters. A lot of, again, speaking really in the donut counties, everyone wants to have their single family home spread apart. For some reason, it's bad to live in an apartment. I know Blythe and I are like, we'll go back to an apartment. Like, not only paying on a house, but things that go wrong in a house. Everyone's like, oh, it's the American dream. Like, mowing my lawn on a Saturday afternoon is not the American dream. I want to sit on the couch, watch college football, or like the amount of maintenance a home takes. Nobody ever talks about. It's a lot. But we need some housing density, not only for people to live in, but for cities to manage the cost of infrastructure. So we see our taxes going up to cover, well, we need new bridges, we need new roads, we need new water pipes. Like a lot of, like Bargersville piping system, their main downtown is, like 70 years old or something. Like, and where are you going to find the money if you're just always building out and having to extend this infrastructure out to just one home? And like, you don't get a whole lot of tax return on one home, but if you can build in some density to your town through apartments or condos, townhomes, then you can start to get some tax return, off of that one line of infrastructure. And I think that's another way. So you get the density, you get more living spaces, but then you can also bring taxes down to make things a little more affordable. And we just don't see that in our suburbs right now, or even our small towns they're kind of shrinking because farming's struggling or their factories are gone. I'd really like to see, and they're doing it. We have like Festival County here in Johnson County, where they really celebrate all the various season festivals that we do. But I think tourism, if there's anything the U.S. can do, if we're, to wrestle something back, is we can be fun and host, be good hosts. We're not doing that right now. Our president is literally shooing people away from our country. But to be good tourism host is something that every town can do. People love to cook, and so we need more restaurants for people to go to in these small towns. Again, bringing the density of the home, of the living, into that small town, and kind of bringing that community back. We've all sort of spread out to have our own thing, and that's great, but it's really, really expensive on the government, let alone the people, to do housing in that way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think you bring a lot of good insight from the environmental and infrastructure aspect of things that I think that our government needs. So.
Yeah, I've seen so many, and a lot of times people will be like, oh, you can't do that in Bargersville. It's too small. I've been to small towns all across the country, from California to Maine, and it can be done. You can put sidewalks in. You can have good infrastructure. You can have the amphitheaters. But you need to have a community, and you really need to think and build on the community. And this community where I live is a little strange. We have Center Grove Schools, which isn't even a town. It was a township school, like out in the country way back when. So it's not Bargersville High School. It's not Greenwood High School. It's Center Grove. So that Center Grove has a community, but it's disconnected from Bargersville and a little bit. and it's disconnected from Greenwood. And so, what community does Center Grove School have outside of obviously this week's homecoming? Changed my picture on some of on my profiles just for fun. Back when I coached at Center Grove, I also went to school at Center Grove, um, and and then it's the individual group, like the band, great band. That's a great community. The choirs, great community. Robotics, great community, right? But they're somewhat disconnected, even within the school, and they in the town. So I'm really trying to I'm not working with them. I wish I could, but they don't really listen to me due to politics in some sense. Or I'm just crazy. I could be crazy. So.
I think community is important, though. I think that it could do a lot of good for Indiana if everywhere kind of had community, kind of like Irvington does. The festivals, like people come from all over the city to go to Irvington for their Halloween fest.
And I think in Irvington, and they've done a really good job in a city that kind of has an identity, crisis, being in Indianapolis and having struggling or a tough school situation. Irvington's hung in there, and they've done it for a long time. Kudos to Irvington. I think Franklin's doing a great job. I'm trying to think off the top of my head somewhere I've been in Indiana recently. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Hamilton County kind of trying to do more community stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, other than that, not a ton.
The way Carmel developed is kind of this, some density. People are like, I don't want to be like Carmel. Down here on the south side, it's always north side, south side battle. I don't want to be like them. Like, they have more apartments than any other town, I think, or town or city other than Indianapolis. I would say in like suburban Indiana, tons of apartments, townhomes. Again, they got that density, office space. Of course, they do have some big businesses, which really helps the tax base. But sprinkling all that in together, so they have sidewalks. A lot of places push away from things like the Monon Trail. But I think that's been a boon for Carmel and everything on the north side. I had a neighbor who I think it's called the Heritage Trail, east-west from Noblesville to like Zionsville or Lebanon, somewhere like that. That Heritage Trail is going to go through their backyard. We lived in a little, like an Arbor Homes kind of neighborhood. Like, oh, that's going to kill us. Like, we live in Arbor Homes. Like, I've had two Arbor Homes. Great. We did have one little leak in a pipe. They kind of fixed it. But I mean, it's, kind of structured housing, or, sort of basic housing. Like, oh, it's going to kill our property values. I'm like, I don't know if you've ever been on the Monon Trail, but I've run it 100, probably 1,000 times from downtown to Westfield, and it's only improved the living situation for pretty much every home along that route.
Basically, as soon as they like extend it, the home values go up.
Yeah.
If you're by the Monon Trail,
I mean, it's like a dream. If I could, if I could take out this train right behind me here, right, this direction, and put a trail there that would take us. So we have a train, and they load it, and it's good business. But yeah, we could go straight downtown from here on a bike if it wasn't a train.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
Tell me about your thoughts about reproductive health care.
Well, my thoughts are that I have a mother, I have a wife, I have 3 daughters. So reproductive health care is pretty important for me. I want them all to, my mom's out of reproductive age now. But I say that kind of jokingly it's very important. It's almost hard to talk about because I just don't get what the holdup is with this, and what the holdup is with really just having women make their own choices, women being in positions of power. My mom was a very strong matriarch and raised us as pretty much a single mom. My first boss was a woman-owned company. Um, Many of my supervisors have been women through my career. I just don't even like to have a woman making decisions is not an issue for me. It's like not even something I even think about. Um, and where I'll even, through the years with work, it'd be like, oh, what do you think about, having a woman tell us what to do? Like, what, what century did you just come out of? Like, what's going on here? So, um, if it's an abortion, if it's period products being taxed. I mean, I had my opponent. It was after the election, and it was part of another whole different town hall that neither of us were involved in, but we were both in the audience. And I was just like, and it got onto abortion, and I said, how about just women's health care in general? Can we talk about that? Just leave abortion, the word out of it. What about, and he's like, well, if somebody has to pay for an abortion, so it's the death penalty for the rapist or whatever. I'm like, hold on with the death penalty. We're just asking you to not tax period products. Like, where are you're going from here to here. And like, we just want some common sense here. Like, why do you have to make it so dramatic? And so my opponent chimes in from the crowd. Oh, that's part of our legislation this year. You'll see, we're going to pass that. Like, did it get passed? No. I just said, Rob, it's been in there. You talk about it like you're going to do something, and you never do anything because you do not respect women. It's so obvious. Why? Like, you're trying to make up the tax shortfall by taxing period products? Like, come on. Like, get a little fired up about that.
No, it's fine. I do too. I am just thinking, I wonder how much of it comes from ignorance too, because I've noticed that as well. And usually when I'm talking to people who go from 0 to 60 really fast, it's because they don't have a good understanding of the basics and don't have the understanding that like women were not studied. Our health wasn't studied until recently, and then it's gotten defunded and all sorts of fun things. So they don't really know a lot about women. And we just found out there's harmful products in those, tampons and pads and things that
Right.
shouldn't be there. And it's still not been addressed. It's not been addressed, but we've had like our third law saying trans people can't participate in sports. Like 3 years in a row, they passed the same freaking law. It's like, can we actually get some good legislation that actually is going to make a difference and
Yeah.
help Hoosiers?
Yeah. Or they're ignorant, or they're gaslighting is really more, because a lot of these guys they're smart people, but they're gaslighting, straw man argument to try to make a point. And I say that you can maybe guess whose town hall we were at that was doing that and gaslighting and angering people on purpose.
Micah Beckwith.
Yeah, it may or may not have been that.
Yeah, it is crazy. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we run out of time, actually, we are 10 minutes out. Tell me what you would like to talk about for the last little bit here. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I mean, you covered the big points, and really part of my campaign and what I want to do and bring it back. And it sounds so simple, but even in our own meetings I host or part of the host group, is I want to listen to the people and I want to know what they want from their legislators. I go to a meeting in Shelby County once a quarter, and they are very happy with their representation right now, or so they say. They like that, like Rob as a person. I think I like Rob as a person. I just don't like the way he's legislating. So though they clap for him at the last meeting and talk about the great things he's done, and I'm like, what do you mean that he's done? He hasn't. What has he done? And how has it benefited you? Like, it hasn't. But then I see him online, and I try not to always be negative. I really don't like being negative. But I kind of have made it a goal for the years. Like, I'm not just going to let people put lies out on Facebook. I'm like, nope, that's not true. Why are you being negative? I'm not being negative. It's just not true. It's just how it is. Anyway, so I see them and they have these issues. I'm like, that's, you praise this guy, but that's his job to legislate that, or be a champion for your community in that, maybe it isn't his job. But since we have a supermajority in Indiana and he is part of the leadership, he should be championing it down to the offices below him in order to push something through, especially if it's the way money is spent that the legislature approved to be spent in that way. In this case, it was broadband cable, right? Many of our rural communities are still on dial-up. Beep, 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 beep.
Wait, seriously?
Right?
I lived in
Yes.
the country and we had satellite.
Many of our rural communities are still on dial-up. And when you hear that, it's just like, what? And so apparently, and I'm not big into Shelby, I'm working on my Shelby County politics, but apparently money was approved for more broadband in Shelby County. And again, it became, the legislator approved the spending of the money and the allocation of the dollars from the state to the county. But then it's the county's job to spend it. And that's where I think it's gotten lost. But I feel like he should be there instead of going to Washington. So we were having this conversation. They were voting on some of this in Shelby County while our legislator was in Washington being told how to vote by President Trump and Vice President Vance. So again, like, you're not even doing anything. You're just bootlicking these guys and doing whatever they want you to do when your community is suffering. And so, it's a roundabout way of like, I want to listen. I want to have meetings where I can, you end up talking because nobody else is. And I really want to encourage people to talk to your legislators, almost take over the meeting on like, no, listen to us. This is what we need. This is what we want. And then maybe, I could speak in, well, we need to, look at some housing density. I know traditionally this community isn't maybe in favor of apartment complexes, but we kind of need that density for affordable housing and to not be spending a fortune on infrastructure just to get power to one house for 5 people. Or some of the bigger houses, it's retired people. So, they're grandparents. They want space to have like their extended family come over, but 90% of the time, these 8-bedroom homes are for 2 people or maybe 4. And it's like, that's a lot of water line. That's a lot of power line, a lot of sewer line going to these homes. And we just need to listen. We need to listen to what the needs are of the community and then try to figure out how to meet those wishes the best we can.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. But it also sounds like your approach is more just a common sense approach. This isn't working. How can we make it work? How can we make it work better? Is that a good summary?
Yeah. Make it work better. Again, I think that comes with the balance. I mean, heck, if I could, and there's no real good way to do it because if people vote, they want to vote for who they want to vote for, and they want to put a cap on it. But I'd really like to never see it get to this super majority minority situation. Again, even if it flipped to the left, which it might, right? Because we've kind of gone so far right now, and people are pretty unhappy. Even if they voted for the president, they're pretty unhappy with him right now. And so it tends to swing back. And so I don't know that in Indiana we'd get to a super majority of Democrats, but there could be a big swing here. And I just don't really see that being beneficial, having this super majority on either side. I think we need to try to keep it in the middle. Again, to be able to have debate and really be able to push each other on both sides to have to think and have to work instead of just being like, meh, I don't need to listen to you. We're just going to do what we want. Again, that tends to not benefit really anyone or maybe just a small group.
Yeah, I think that just encouraging people to vote for people like you who are reasonable and see that it's like, yes, ideally in my ideal world, yes, I like these progressive ideas. In practice, it might not be realistic right now, but it definitely would be great to have more representation instead of this super minority of Democrats.
Yeah, and I think we can get there. I am probably one of the worst people about where I was like, I'm just not into politics. Like they're doing their thing. I'm going to stay out of it. The whole point of it is for us to be involved. Like that's how our government, and of course, so it's been 25-ish years, being 50, that, I've been voting, or 28 years, whatever. And yeah, I didn't pay attention for most of those. It just kind of came, and I bought into the propaganda that this is a red state. It doesn't really matter how you vote. And I'll tell you this: it doesn't matter how you vote. Vote for me, because it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just vote for me, and vote for my wife, Blythe Potter,
If it
Secretary of
doesn't matter,
State.
just vote for all the Potters.
Yeah, or vote all Democrat. If it doesn't matter, just vote all Democrat, and we'll see if it matters.
I'm gonna make a video about that.
Because it does. It really matters. There is much more purple than we think, and there are great candidates. Don't let the money. Once they're in office, we say the money is the problem. So when we're running campaigns, don't get blinded by the money. I'm not going to have a lot of money. I'm not going to have flashy TV ads. I've actually left a job, not because I was forced out. My employer was awesome. They were always very supportive of me doing the campaign stuff. But I felt bad working for a company and being on site on BP's property, on AES's property, on Duke's property. It's like, I am fighting you. Like, you don't want me here. Like and it's not fair for you. I still did a good job. I wasn't sabotaging anything, and they paid their bills. Like they're fine. And it was always cleaning up the environment, which seems like a good thing. But what I really didn't like is whether it was the petroleum companies or the energy companies, they're always pounding the contractors for lower wages and all this stuff. In the meantime, their CEOs are taking huge bonuses. So I actually left that job before there was any weird conflict, and I've kind of been floating here, and I've settled here at Primary Loss Control. It's kind of a small boutique company where I have a lot of flexibility in my consulting to do all sorts of things, and they're out of Boston, so they're really not involved in Indiana politics at all. So yeah, all that said is I'm not going to have a lot of money. I'm not going to have corporate money and all that kind of stuff.
So you are a grassroots candidate. So
Grassroots, baby.
I think that's the best kind, because then you're fighting for the people, right? You're not fighting for the corporations who bought your campaign.
Yep. And we need businesses. I'm not saying we can't just do this all on our own. We need businesses. We need farms. We need restaurants and cafes. We need it all. And we need the AES and we need the Duke, right? They provide our power. But maybe we can use the power of the people to look at power a little differently than just, coal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it, and I wish you the best. If you don't follow Friends of Michael Potter, please go do so. And he is on Act Blue, even if it's just $5. Giving $5 to a grassroots candidate can make a huge difference. Is there anywhere else you want them to go to donate, look at merch, anything like that?
Yeah, it's Friends of Michael Potter everywhere, or pretty much now. It's, if you look up Michael Potter, I come up. There are lots of Michael Potters in this world, which is really surprising. Even on Act Blue. So if it gets confusing, it's usually Friends of Michael Potter. Look me up. Thank you so much for having me on. This means the world. Every opportunity to talk with people is helpful. And so thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. This will be up on YouTube so people can view it afterwards. I post them wherever it lets me with the time frame allowance. So, but it will definitely be on YouTube, and I'll let you know when it's posted.
All right.
Have a great
Thank you so
weekend.
much.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.